Hello and welcome to the latest episode of News Trash here on the Geek Show. My name is Rob and I am burnt. I'm burnt to a crisp. Damn you, weather. And as ever, I am joined by my co-host here, producer Rob. Hello there.
Hello, I'm not burned because I didn't go out into the weather.
Yeah, they have a saying in Spain, only mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the midday sun. Well, guess which one I am?
You started off as an Englishman, but by the time you finished, you were a mad dog.
Well, you know, when it gets very hot and you get dehydrated, you start saying things that you probably shouldn't. So you start as one and you end up as the other.
I hate to say it, but, you know, if you basically close-cropped your hair, lost the glasses and the beard, and put on maybe another 40-odd pounds, you could double as Ray Winston in Sexy Beast.
Worse things have been said about me.
I said put on about 40 pounds.
Yeah, I want to lose about that. No, I'd be very light if I lost 40 pounds, bloody hell.
We could use you as a kite.
Probably be anemic, tiny. News trash. It's a weird time that we're on, because basically it's pre-E3 and all of the news has run scared.
It literally has.
I think it's best to say here, best to front load this here. We will be doing E3 episodes, which will be a little bit different. Essentially, it'll be sort of trailer trash special episodes, where we have like a run of trailers and we just talk over them, you know.
Yeah. Unless there is like some earth-shaking news, like, I don't know, we're invaded by interdimensional gamers and we have to win, I don't know, some kind of Resident Evil or whatever League of Legends tournament against them to save the world.
I've told you about taking cocaine before doing this show, Rob.
No, right. What I've just described, I haven't read that anywhere, but it might as well be the plot of one of those weird Eastern trash fiction novels that I've been reading.
Anyway, on that, I think we should jump straight into the news, because segueing out of that is just impossible, so I refuse to do it. I instead pass the baton over to Rob, and he can do it instead.
I'm going to start off with some rumours. The rumour mill for E3 has been a buzz while people have been throwing in all these big kind of logs of suspicion and various other things.
Before you go into it, one thing that really bugged me about this time is everybody scrutinises every single last letter and word and placement and press releases and say, oh, that must mean this. It's like, cool it. You're starting to look like conspiracy theorists.
No, seriously, they are. Right? And this will be proven when, and I can guarantee this will be proven when Phil Spencer or Jim Ryan or somebody, right, or I've forgotten who the guy who's in charge of Nintendo, drinks a can of 7-Up, right, and somebody then links that to Cool Spot, that game from years ago, and says, oh no, they're making a new version of Cool Spot.
Well, that would be the world collapsing in itself, wouldn't it? But what are some of these rumours you have in question, though? Not right, Cool Spots. Cool Spots not coming back. Let's just stress that.
Right, okay, so one of the rumours, Hitman's developer, IO Interactive, they are apparently making a new fantasy role-playing game, a new one, that possibly is going to be exclusive to Xbox. We don't know yet. And the rumour is it's going to have dragons. Now, why is that a thing? That's the thing that confuses me about this.
That's kind of a fantasy game which doesn't have dragons. But hang on, where's the dragons?
We're going to do a fantasy one, and it's going to have magic. We're going to do a fantasy one. It's going to have elves.
Yeah, it's kind of. If it doesn't have any of those things, really, what are you playing at? But if it's true, it'd be interesting to see, you know, IO work on something different genre altogether. Yeah.
I mean, the fact that it's going to have dragons, I regard as neither here nor there. The fact that it's fantasy, fine, fair enough. I'm all for that, fine. Totally with it. Dragons didn't really... I neither know nor care. I've outgrown my dragon phase. It was replaced by dinosaurs. Because dinosaurs are real and you can own their bones.
On that creepy note, let's move to the next rumour, maybe.
Not macabre at all, was it? This one is one that I don't really regard this as a rumor since it's pretty much confirmed. The new Switch. I refuse to call it the Switch Pro.
But the rumor was this is going to be announced before E3.
Yeah.
So this bit could age really badly because by the time this is out, that could have been announced. But it doesn't feel like it's going to happen. It's
like the worst kept secret in video games at this point. Nintendo might as well just say, hey, this is the release date. You might as well, we'll give you some screenshots at some point. Just be happy with the release date.
There's questions here of one, is it a completely new console? No. And if it's not a new console, how long until the next console? Because it doesn't feel like it's going to be long, maybe 2 years for the next console. So, and with the semiconductor shortages, which we've talked about on previous shows affecting Nintendo now, this kind of feels like, I know they make a lot of money out of it, but a lot of long-term Nintendo fans might feel shortchanged.
Yeah.
When I mean that is they get like a new one and then 6 months later, Switch 2 or whatever it's called. Because of the nature of trying to get one, like we have with the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, it's very hard to get one. But you don't have the threat of the next console after that coming in like a year, 6 months down the line, do you? If you get me.
Yeah, I get you. Anyway, moving on to more rumors. Obviously, we've already talked in another episode of News Trash about the Team Ninja Final Fantasy game, which was part of that Square Enix leak, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So we've already talked about that, and the fact that the fact that they called it Final Fantasy Origin is confusing because there is already Final Fantasy Origins.
So is it going to be about the head of the Final Fantasy, Square Studio thinking, oh hell, we're going to go out of business. We better do something. Let's throw all of our last creativity into this game and call it Final Fantasy because, if it fails, we're done. Turn that into a Souls-like. That story.
Yeah.
But do that.
You never know. The thing that confused me is Final Fantasy Origin is basically, if I remember rightly, it's the first couple of Final Fantasy games, and it was put into a collection and released on the PlayStation 1. It was called Final Fantasy Origins. It was followed by Final Fantasy Anthology.
You're not going to get pedantic. Let's move on to more rumours.
But I want to be pedantic. Damn you.
Stories to get through. Do your job.
Another thing that has been part of the rumour mill is Starfield.
Yeah, that's almost... everybody's expecting that.
Yeah.
It's heavily implied to be a Xbox exclusive, not because of what Jeff Grubb says. I don't pass what he says as gospel. More in the sense of the wording of what Phil Spencer says. He said games with a legacy on other consoles will continue to have that legacy on other consoles. And new IP will be exclusive on Xbox for the Game Pass to add value to the Game Pass. Starfield doesn't have a legacy on other consoles, so by the very definition of what he said, it's going to be an Xbox exclusive. And that's fine. It needs those big attention-grabbing games to get people in the Xbox system.
I mean, I'm not fussed whether Starfield is exclusive or not. What I would love to see is for Starfield to be the next big sci-fi space opera.
Well, we'll see.
Basically, something to challenge the history and nostalgia that people associate with Mass Effect.
Here's the thing.
Or with Knights of the Old Republic.
There's a staggering amount of pressure on Bethesda for this. Because if they wheel out another RPG with that broken-ass creation system, the groan, which will reverberate around the video game world, will be deafening.
Yeah.
They really need... If this is going to be at E3, which I believe it will be, they really need to knock it out of the park and completely reinvent what a Bethesda RPG is, because if it's just the same thing, same buggy, crappy combat thing, but in space, the groan will be deafening.
Oh god, yeah. On that note, that kind of leads us to the next rumor almost perfectly. Guardians of the Galaxy and Square Enix.
Well, it depends which part of Square Enix is doing it, but I'd happily play a Guardians of the Galaxy game.
Would you if it was being made by the team that made the Marvel Avengers game?
God, no.
So yeah, the main thing is it's Guardians of the Galaxy. It's being made by Square Enix, and so people are liking the fact that there's another Guardians game being made, but they're also hating the fact that it's Square Enix making it.
Yeah, I mean, if it's tying itself to the movies, that's fine. But if it's not, it gives it a lot more potential for different versions and iterations of the team.
Yes.
And there's many, many. We might not know this, fact fans, but Iron Man was a Guardian, and so was Venom. So it goes quite broad in who gets in there.
Yeah, there is apparently a Borderlands spin-off coming because Borderlands needs more.
Yeah, the rumour was it was Tiny Tina or whatever she's called.
See, yeah, Tiny Tina is
horribly annoying.
Yeah, Tiny Tina is one of those meme characters that everybody seems to. Well, everybody says they adore Tiny Tina, but you're like, okay, would you share an apartment with Tiny Tina? God no.
5 minutes and you'd be, throwing all of the clothes out of the window.
No, the police would turn up. We're looking for this person. Have you seen it?
You hate her so much you secretly fart in a pillow whenever they're out.
I thought you got a badly made patio when the police turn up.
Yeah. But is that it for rumours?
No, there are a couple more.
Just fire through these ones quickly then, eh?
Yeah, I'm not gonna bother with Elden Ring because we're not sure if Elden Ring is going to turn up to the event or not. There are a couple of 2K leaks, but XCOM with Marvel Heroes?
Well, it depends which Marvel Heroes, really, doesn't it? I mean, if it's like sort of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, I think, again, the groan will be deafening. But if it's some powered characters, could be interesting. We'll see.
An XCOM type game with Marvel superhero characters. But I think if you're going to make something like that, you need to choose the lesser known characters. You need to basically go for B and C team characters that nobody knows about. So one of the last things is that whatever EA or DICE decides is going to be the tagline for it, Battlefield 6 is apparently going to be on Game Pass, which
is good, I guess.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I'm not sure how, I mean, Battlefield has been getting its backside handed to it recently because of the success of Call of Duty Warzone, hasn't it?
It's the Pez to Call of Duty's FIFA.
Yeah, which can't, we're past the room a bit and we're into the main meaty section now, which is gonna go fairly quick, but kind of leads us on to the fact that Byron Bede, a guy most people probably haven't heard of, he's the former EVP and general manager of Call of Duty, and he's been hired by EA to oversee the development of Battlefield.
I mean, EA, I don't know, Activision and EA are kind of similar stature in the video game world, aren't they?
Yeah, and notorious rivals as well. Yeah,
it's kind of weird that. I mean, is he sick of working with Activision? Because honestly, the hidden story here is everybody's leaving Blizzard, of the Activision Blizzard corporate collaboration, and Activision is basically throwing all of their weight behind the Blizzard properties. So there's that sort of context. It's putting teams to work on all sorts of games which they aren't suited. Like, they basically mothballed the Toys for Bob studio and they're making them work on Diablo, I think.
I don't think this is linked to that. When you look at this guy's resume...
No, but it's all linked. Like, the company which he worked for is... That's the context of the company he worked for. That's all I was saying.
Yeah, I know, but in the case of Byron Bede, I don't think it applies to him.
Okay.
The reason being, when you look at his resume, he quietly resigned after 15 years working with Activision Blizzard, and he was working on flagship franchises. He was leading operations on titles like Modern Warfare 3, Warzone, and Call of Duty Mobile. So they're basically, I put this more down to EA have offered him a lot more money to get his expertise on board to change how Battlefield is.
Potentially, yeah.
I think that's what's happened here. They've looked at it and said, this guy is one of the key people in the success of Call of Duty.
What I'm going to say here is what a lot of people who are in the first-person shooter community have been saying for years. Battlefield, fine. They need to bring back Bad Company. Yeah. Bad Company was beloved. Bring back Bad Company. That'd really shake up their formula.
Yeah, it would. And I totally agree with you. It's one of those things that they've tried to revamp Battlefield. Do you remember that hardline where they had like the grappling hook?
Yeah, it was sort of like American Cops.
Yeah.
Delete political statement here game.
Yes. Yes, it was totally that.
Games aren't about politics. Here's some cops that just murder some people. Oh, hang on. Wow, that's not aged well as a concept, has it?
No, it's not. I shouldn't laugh, but I'm more laughing at just the fact that you went straight in there, right up to the knees.
True, though, and it's not a point you can ignore in this.
No, it's not.
So that'd be interesting to see how Battlefield sort of does something with like a mainstay Call of Duty guy.
Yeah, I mean, what will change? I don't know, but something has to, because otherwise Battlefield is going to go. It is going to end up FIFA versus PES all over again. And
FIFA destroyed PES.
Yeah. Speaking of people who are no longer working for the companies that they used to work for, Yuji Naka is no longer working at Square Enix. He is, to people who don't know him, he is the co-creator of Sonic the Hedgehog and also has led development on Nights into Dreams, Burning Rangers, and Phantasy Star Online. But after the debacle, do you call it a debacle? It has a Metacritic score of just 36.
Whoa, that's bad. That's the worst I've seen in a while.
I suppose debacle does apply.
With all the stories of companies which remove bonuses for games which don't get over a certain Metacritic score.
Yeah.
And the fact that Bethesda famously screwed Obsidian over Fallout New Vegas because of Metacritic scores.
Yeah.
Yeah, Metacritic scores matter to the people up top.
Yeah. Yes, they do. And the fact that Balan Wonderland was such an abject critical failure.
And commercial.
And commercial failure. I mean, the bizarre thing is that, do you know that game It Takes Two?
Yes.
Is basically the same type of game.
Yeah.
Effectively, right? It's very similar, I should say. It's a very similar game. It Takes Two plays like a dream. Is such a wonderful game to play. But then you look at Balan Wonderland and you just think, there's too much of Sonic the Hedgehog in there. There's too much of Nights into Dreams in there. There's too much of all of these old things in there.
Subtext that you heavily sort of nutted into there. Whereas there's this common theme where old gaming heads and developers have really struggled to jive with modern gaming conventions and standards. And the fact that, I don't know whether he walked away, Yuji Naka, or whether he was fired, but given the horrible failure, I'm kind of guessing it was the latter.
Yeah.
But the point is, there's this divorce between what the old gamers do and did, and the fact that none of them really have worked and made a good game in the now, a good contemporary game.
Well, I mean, Yuji Naka apparently, speaking to IGN in September last year, stated that Balan Wonderland was his one chance to make a full-scale platform game. Now, that's kind of sad.
That he bottled it that much.
Yeah. But, I mean, then
of course,
again...
There's probably stories behind closed doors of why it turned out that bad. We could say it all on Yuji Naka. It could be true. But at the same time, not knowing any of the story, it might just be all sorts of other things. Yeah,
there might be all sorts of other things. I mean, I think back to what happened with Shenmue 3 and what happened with just the development of that and how that game turned out.
Just a short version is he wanted to do certain things, wasn't provided enough money, so had to compromise.
Yeah. And, that's the thing. Again, I think if they're given the right tools and the right support, then maybe they can do something amazing, but it's got to be there.
Yeah.
Speaking of old heads in the video game world, Nolan Bushnell. Now, that's a name that a lot of you out there probably do not know. And in fact, when I first saw the name again, I thought, I know that name from somewhere, but why do I know that name? And I had to Google it. And that's how left field the name is these days, right?
Yeah.
Nolan Bushnell is he's launching a new game studio called Athena Worlds, and he's launching it along with executives from King, Blizzard, EA, and Konami. Nolan Bushnell is the founder of Atari.
He's still alive?
Yes.
I don't mean this as disrespectfully, but the reason why I say that is, one, Atari was at the height of cocaine in the 80s. Cocaine was kind of like the office place, it was like drinks at the water cooler, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Basically. And second aspect of that, there's never been a more spectacular gaming implosion than Atari.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the thing here is, Atari are incredibly important. It's not like they're just some old head game company. They're basically instrumental in inventing games as they are known today.
Yeah, and you have a lot of these executives from other prominent companies who are going to be on the board of directors of Athena Worlds. Their idea is actually quite a good idea.
And also, just to sort of further that, this guy wouldn't have come back into video games after such a spectacular end to Atari unless he had the ideas, unless he had the fire, unless he wanted something to achieve. He just didn't do it to do it.
The thing is, I don't know if he actually left. He might not have left. He might have been one of those invisible investors in various things.
Potentially, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. So the idea for Athena Worlds is actually quite a good one. They're going to be using their technology to build proprietary games and IPs across PC, PlayStation, and Xbox and Nintendo, as well as mobile platforms. So they're going to be working on the development front, but they have this wealth of experience and contacts at the highest level. And I think with video games being the way they are, you need that in order to get ahead.
Yeah, especially as a new company. That's really, it's the difference between being one of the other 99 video game developers that disappear in almost instantaneous obscurity or pulling through and doing something.
You know, Bushnell's not the only member of the old guard stepping back into the limelight. I am really, really curious to see what's going to happen with this. Ken and Roberta Williams, the founders of Sierra Online and arguably the creators of the point-and-click genre, they're going to be making a new game after 20 years.
Well, yeah, they are
20 years.
Between them and LucasArts, there's no point-and-click game.
Exactly.
And I don't want to give too much credit to that genre, but that's kind of the point-and-click movement of games. Without that, games are just arcade experiences. They basically invented the idea of games being a storytelling medium in the way that it is today. Yeah.
Their new game is going to be called The Secret, and it's said to be Sierra-flavoured, and it's going to be...
They weren't always funny, but yeah, they made funny games.
Yeah. They also made some absolute pap, but, we won't talk about Phantasmagoria.
If you make enough games, you have to make some rubbish along the way.
Yeah. The Secret is going to be a collaboration between the Williams and 3D artist Marcus Maximus Mera, and Ken has said, Roberta and I have been asked for decades whether we would ever produce another game, and we have always firmly said no. This changed when Roberta had a clever idea for a game. At the same time, I am having fun learning the Unity 3D development environment, and I happened to be chatting with a talented 3D artist. So this is a game that's come out from a weird serendipity of circumstances.
I'm wishing them all the well, because, it's that sort of legacy in games. The problem I have with a lot of games culture is it's very much focused on now. It's got a very short memory.
Yeah. When you think about the lineup of the original Sierra games, you had King's Quest, Police Quest, Space Quest. You had all of those that kind of laid the foundations for the point-and-click genre. I think King's Quest was it Space Quest or King's Quest was the first one? I can't remember.
The King's Quest has the biggest legacy, though. The biggest sort of footprint it's made in the game industry.
That got a remake quite recently, didn't it?
Yeah.
It was only in the last few years that got a remake. So I for one am really looking forward to that. I really am curious because I'm a big fan of Sierra. I'm a big fan of the Williams. Moving from kind of weird but good news, weird but positive news to not so nice news. A parent watchdog called Parents Together have called on Roblox. You know, that Roblox service where kids can go in and make their own games and their own things. It's a bit like Minecraft and various other things, and it was
just Minecraft, but you can make your own games in it.
Yeah, and it was floated on the stock market quite recently for a higher valuation than EA, which shocked us. Yeah, Parents Together are calling on Roblox to stop baiting children into outrageous spending.
Yeah, where were they for FIFA, eh?
Yeah, they have basically they're warning that children are susceptible to spending large sums of money for in-app purchases on the gaming platform, and they've said that it's made to specifically appeal to children. It simply shouldn't be possible for a player to spend thousands of dollars in a few days.
Wow.
The fact that it keeps happening to so many families means that this is not a bug in the system. It's Roblox's business model.
Yeah.
Now,
I mean, that's not specifically to Roblox, but I think just honestly, it's gone past the point where that sort of predatory in-game apps as a means for companies to make the money that they need to make. I think that entirely needs addressing. I think, honestly, the video game industry is at this point of just its skeevy tactics to get money. I think it's just at this point in time where it's either let them get away with whatever the hell they want, or just take a moment to look at the ways that games make money and, look at
the thing is,
with a bit of clarity and a bit of a clear head and say, is this right?
Yeah, but I mean, if your platform is primarily aimed at children, then you have to have an understanding of how children are going to behave. And there is a lot of peer pressure.
They won't consider the money. They'll just think, I need that, and what do I do? I'm doing, and then just do it. They won't question the money. They'll just do it.
Or they'll basically succumb to peer pressure because there is a massive amount of peer pressure for younger kids. They'll have all of their online friends who maybe have the new skin or have this new thing, and their parents might have bought it for them, but they'll be bragging about it, and they'll feel the need to go and get that by any means possible.
Mm-hmm.
And that cannot be a business model for a company. It shouldn't be a business model for a company.
It just, honestly, we say it time and time again, but the fact that it's kind of free reign for the video game industry to do whatever they want and make money however they want, it really needs to come to an end.
Yeah, they need regulation. And I can't even say stricter regulation. They just need regulation, full stop.
There's no regulation.
Yeah. Anyway,
just on that point, the fact that FIFA can say governments are wrong, we disagree, that government's assessment that we are gambling, and just go ahead and do it, kind of says everything about this situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Things that have been delayed, God of War Ragnarok has been delayed.
And everybody expected it, except internet trolls.
Yeah, but the reason why it got delayed is the interesting bit. The reason why it's been delayed is because Sony have basically gone back on their whole idea that God of War Ragnarok is just going to be a PS5 exclusive.
No, I think that was one of the ones that was actually developed on the PS4 and PS5 simultaneously. It started life off of a PS4 game, and PS5 was announced, and so it became both. But I think it's one of these games where, when it was announced, it was released in 2018, and they said they were going to get a sequel, which is going to be across 2 generations in 3 years. That's pushing it an awful lot.
No, God of War Ragnarok was originally announced for the PlayStation 5, released in 2021.
Okay, but even so, that point still remains.
Yeah.
The fact that they wanted to make an entirely new game with a probably new game world in 3 years within a pandemic was ambitious, to say the least. It was obviously going to get delayed. Nobody truly, if they thought about it seriously for a second, would have believed that it was out in 2021.
Yeah, but I mean, the reason why it's been delayed is so that it can be out on the PlayStation 4.
Well, no. The reason why it's been delayed is because they can't work from home. It's very difficult. The same reason that many other games have been delayed. That doesn't help, admittedly. But, yeah. Honestly, for God of War, whatever it's called, I would be surprised if it comes out late 2022, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, other games that are going to be cross-gen now, Gran Turismo 7, which
that one was a backtrack, yeah.
Yeah, that one was a definite backtrack.
Just to defend that, I know they said generations matter, but at the same time, about 110 million PlayStation 4 users versus about 10 million PlayStation 5s. Where's the more money? Obviously, they're going to go where there's more money. They're not going to cut off all of that potential income. Get out of your own arse already. Of course they're going to do stuff like that. Seriously.
Yeah, and so one final bit, two final bits. The last one kind of leads us into the very last part, though. So Nintendo are turning a former factory of theirs into a tourist attraction. Now, initially, when I looked at this, I thought, they're making a Nintendo museum. Surely the best place for a Nintendo museum would be Super Nintendo World, which is at Universal Studios in Japan. That would be the ideal place for a Nintendo museum. But then, after reading it, an understanding. This was actually Nintendo's old plant, which was originally built in 1969 to print Hanafuda cards, and that's in Uji, which is outside Kyoto. And they're turning that, which is just south of Kyoto, into a museum about Nintendo's history. The plant was closed in 2016, and yeah, I kind of get it now. I kind of get it.
There's history there, but I say good for Uji. I mean, I say this as a foreigner, and I have no really basis to say this, but Tokyo's got enough.
Well,
it's kind of like, people come to England from other places in the world and they say, I want to see the tourist stuff. Where do they all go? Where do they all go on the droves? London, and if they're really adventurous, they might go to York.
Yeah, but when they go to London, they just do the typical touristy stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing. Japan's the same. When people say, "Oh, I want to go to Japan," where do they always go? They always go to Tokyo. So this is sort of spreading the love out to maybe a lesser known place, Uji near Kyoto. I imagine a place like that needs all the tourism money it can get. So this is good. I
actually think that Japan is onto something where by having Kyoto and Tokyo. And I think that more countries could possibly follow the same idea. Maybe not now, but historically they might have been able to. By having an actual capital in Tokyo, but having a spiritual capital in Kyoto, they can focus on all of the cultural side of things in Kyoto.
It's the historical capital of Japan, isn't it, Kyoto?
It's the historical capital of Japan, but it's now also the spiritual and cultural capital of Japan. And so, if you want to understand Japanese culture in the more traditional sense, then Kyoto is a great place to go.
Yes.
There are other places where you could also visit. Hokkaido's also quite nice.
Tokyo is kind of like capitalism.
Osaka is also another great place to visit for some traditional Japanese stuff.
It's like the most capitalist city on the planet, Tokyo. So it's a bit overwhelming for stuff it's a bit more reserved and pared back.
And the thing is, the fact that they're opening the museum in Uji, it kind of fits. If you talk about kind of the brain of Japan, that's Tokyo. If you talk about the soul of Japan, though, that's Kyoto.
Yeah, you've said that. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah. So anyway, final story, and this kind of leads us into what we're going to be talking about next. Dark Horse Comics. Right now, this is unusual because I've not seen another comic book publisher do this. We know that there are Marvel games and we know that there are DC games, but they're always done by external developers. Dark Horse are actually setting up their own gaming division.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, people could say, but they don't have the properties they make games out of. Yeah, they do. They've got Hellboy, they've got all sorts. They've got a really rich catalogue of games which you won't, titles which you won't see anything like.
There's been a couple of Hellboy games, and I've already made it known. That indie game that I reviewed ages ago called Hellside, I think it's the perfect game, the perfect type of game. And if they basically made a Hellboy game modeled like that, made like that, right, I would play that. I would play that to hell and back.
But I think Black Hammer, the Jeff Lemire series, that's like sort of an alternative history superhero thing. They could make loads of great games out of Black Hammer. I think that's Dark Horse too.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, which kind of leads us into what we're going to talk about now, which is things that we want to see from E3.
Yeah, this is sort of like in shape of trailer trash, because honestly, all the trailers have ran off scared, so we've got to put something here to end the show. And seeing as though he's kind of set up a link somewhere, I don't know what he's picked for this, so I'm going to let him go first, because I have mine, and that segue would not work for mine.
Yeah, well, I've already suggested what I'd love to see from a Hellboy game. And that's an old one. People have known that. Regular listeners will know that I wanted a Hellboy game in the style of Hellsign for a long, long time now. I think that any developers who look at Hellsign, look at the type of game, and they would immediately see just how attractive that is for any true Hellboy fan.
You throw some fights in there too, because Hellboy does have to have fights.
Yeah, well, it does have fights, but you'd have to work out the mechanics of the fights. That's fine. That's okay. But there are others out there. I mean, not just from Dark Horse. You have IDW and you have Image Comics and all sorts of other, comic book publishers out there. I would love to see some new superhero type, lesser known superhero franchises coming out and in the video game format to explore kind of other universes, other comic book universes, not just the Marvel and DC ones, because there are some really interesting characters out there. Savage Dragon, for example, works as a police officer, and so he can't go around destroying the city because that's collateral damage, and that goes against his job, He has a wife and a kid, he's got to support it, but he works for law enforcement, so he can't throw people through buildings the way Superman can. He can't act without impunity, like they do in all sorts of other superhero video games and movies.
So basically, you want more superhero games, but not sort of imagined one like Infamous. Because I don't think Infamous could really hold a candle to any sort of like long-running superhero series as far as how well it's done.
Well, this is
just
the thing,
sort of like lesser-known real comic books focus on superheroes turned into video games. That's basically what you're shooting at here.
Stuff that hasn't been covered though, and Invincible has got that really good cartoon series on Amazon Prime, and I really have been enjoying that. I've enjoyed The Umbrella Academy on Netflix and various others, and I'd love to see that in video games. I'd love to see video games start embracing the lesser-known characters, the more unknown characters, and exploring those universes more.
Smaller studios, I think, could do that. Bigger ones, no.
Yeah, I'm tired of the Superman, the Batman, and all of that stuff. Yeah. It's been done to death.
I will say I'm looking forward to the Rocksteady game, the Suicide Squad one, and I hope to see more of that. But that's not the one I was wanting to talk about. I just want to see more of Callisto Protocol, the game from Glenn Schofield, ex-dev of EA and Dead Space fame, because that trailer was really, really good, and I think it's time to see a little bit more of that, because, survival horror with groomy monsters is cool.
What he hasn't been telling you, folks, is that recently he was replaying Dead Space again.
It still holds up. It's still great. So, on that, I think it's time to call an end to this week's show.
Yes.
Thank you for listening all the way to the end. This one will be uploaded pretty much instantly on the podcast feed. I apologise for letting it get out of hand with a month's worth dropped in a few days. So if you listen to this on the podcast feed, I am very, very sorry. If you're listening on YouTube, please consider subscribe, and all of that good stuff. Support your local independent YouTube channel. And on that, thank you very much for listening and sticking with another episode of News Trash here on The Geek Show. We'll see you next time for more news and more trash.
Bye!